Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And a lot of weird shit. Roll to seize!
Welcome to Roll to Seize. This is episode 48. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host and Warhammer enthusiast, Andrew Dickinger.
That's me, Andrew.
That's you and Andrew. That's
Yes.
right. That's how you've always spoken. Your linguistic styles are just so legendary at this point.
Like Shakespearean, you could say.
I would definitely say it. Almost every time I describe how you speak is I say, like Shakespeare? Old Billy Shakespeare from... At this point, man, thousands upon thousands and thousands of years ago.
My quotes at this point are at the level of Hamlet.
Yes.
Probably not.
You right? Was that one of them? Was that one of your quotes?
That was one of my quotes, just right there.
One of my quotes are at the level of Hamlet. It's a quote about being so good at quotes.
Yes.
God, you've taken it to
Meta.
the next level. You are the next coming of Billy Shakespeare. But...
You just said Billy Shakespeare.
Yeah, me and old Bill are so close. Well, look, we all know he was revived multiple times through demonic rituals. Like, it's happened a few times. We brought him back for some new plays. And really was weird because when he came back, he just started writing, like, Lion King movies, which are just based on his own plays. It was really weird.
Yeah, a lot of Hamlet and other things. I can remember Shakespearean stuff.
Right?
My brain is not working right now. My word.
Good, because we're about to be talking for a while.
All right.
Here we go. But yeah, so guys, it's been a month since we've talked to you, and a lot of interesting things have happened. A new codex has come out. Imperial Knights, big robots.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that as far as what codex, because a lot of the codexes that get released, they have to, stem it to a certain extent with how much shit they give the armies. Mm-hmm. I will say that the relics for Deathwatch disappoint me a little bit, where, they don't have, a crazy gun or a real crazy sword or anything. They're supposed to have, actual advanced, tech that's being advanced in the Imperium.
They're also they're the Black Ops of Space Marines, and don't they just mostly have baubles and books and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just
their best relics are a tome and a flashlight.
I mean,
Sorry, whatever the Beacon Angelus is.
Yeah, I don't know what it's supposed to be. It's some kind of device.
Guys, it's a magical flashlight, right? I think we all agree.
It's a flashlight that projects a bat signal into the sky.
And then they're like, we are needed. We must go. And they do.
They have one unique sword, but it's not great. And they have special issue ammo.
Ooh.
Which is woo.
Man, that's a mouthful. What is this, sir? Oh, it's special issue ammunition. Are you okay? You having a stroke?
But I understand that the reason they didn't get that much likely is because they already have special issue ammo, and they have probably the most flexible Space Marine army. You can do fucking anything.
Yeah, I think man, it's so crazy to think about, but I really think Deathwatch kind of completes the Space Marine package. That's not to say that they're better than other Space Marine armies. I just think they use a lot of their tools really well.
Let's be clear. I used them in the last tournament. We'll get into that, but intercessors with special issue ammo in Deathwatch feel like fucking Space Marines.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're the best army for Primaris, this time. They are so good for Primaris.
I mean, we'll see what happens when Wolves get them and everything, and what, maybe there'll be Primaris on Wolves.
Primaris Wolves! Prime Wolf!
Yeah, I mean, special issue ammo basically redesigned the utility of an intercessor squad, and the mixed units. I mean, the easiest thing to introduce is, last month we actually talked about Deathwatch and aggressors inside of those units, but just having a single Inceptor in one of those units and giving them a free fallback and shoot it's very strong.
It's so many Ultramarines are like, but that was our thing. It's yeah, we get that thing and other stuff as well.
But to the original idea about Knights, Knights really has 3 models. A lot of people forget, it's just 3 chassis with variants.
Plus 10 billion relics.
Well, but that's what I'm getting into is that their model count is literally just 3 models. Like it's not like any other army, which is like 14 to 20 different model types. They have 3 model variants, and that's it. And so like they have a ton.
Yeah, I guess you're right because there's the medium knight, there's the big knight, and now there's the little baby knights now. And that's just it.
That's it.
Yeah, you're
that's
right.
all they have. They have
now the different versions of them have different names, but truly the chassis, as you stated,
you have the Valiant chassis, you have the Knight chassis, and you have the
Armiger.
The Armiger chassis, and essentially it's just those three chassis in different variations is all they have.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why they have the most houses, aka chapter tactics, the most warlord traits, and the most relics, and it's because they have those 3 things and nothing else.
And you got to build a whole codex on the back of that skeleton, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's what actually I love about it is that now with the ability to have multiple character knights, you can actually make them feel like heroes, like they should be.
It's really cool.
And there's definitely a few relics that are like, if you're not using this, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
but
I mean, now we're going to quickly kind of call out our favorite things from the codex. We're not going to go in-depth into the codex. I think at this point, it's been out long enough that there's a lot of things you can listen to or watch or check out if you want to learn more about it or just get it because it's out at this point.
I will say that I think the regular knight households are stronger than the Mechanicus knight households in general.
I mean, what is it? The Hawk Shroud? I mean, that one's kind of...
double your wounds.
Just the best.
It's very good. Also, I believe it's Griffin. It may be House Griffin. It may be the wrong house I'm thinking of. But there's a house that essentially gives like them like more advancing and reroll charges and then advance in charge and stuff like that.
That's the close combat house.
That's
right?
the close combat house, and
it might be Griffin, but we can just all call it the close combat house.
The close combat house. That house has redefined the function of melee knights.
Yeah. There's one of the knights that is just like, I think it's a 2+ weapon skill. And like you can just arm it up with like minimal amount of weapons, just close combat weapons. And I think you can get it up to like, with its stompy little feet, you can get it up to like 18 attacks.
Yeah, well there's
crazy.
The cheapest of the regular knight chassis is I believe it's called the Knight Warden. Again, could be getting that wrong.
Could be way wrong, but you guys know what we're talking about.
But it's the knight that has a knight power fist and a knight chainsword, and it only has like just a single secondary weapon, so it's mainly a combat knight.
It's got those heavy stubbers, my friend.
But this is where we can talk about our favorite things. So there is the relic fist for knights with the power fist.
Oh yeah,
that's kind of silly.
The super fist. I think it's called like the Paragon
Gauntlet.
Paragon Gauntlet. Yeah. And it's just like, it is the super fist. It is damage 8.
Yes.
Strength 16, because it just 2x is the strength.
I think it's AP -4.
I mean, who cares?
And,
it's a super fist.
And it's also loses the -1 to hit, so there's that.
So just hits you on, and yeah, I guess if you put on that knight, can you hit on 2s?
I'm not.
Does that knight hit on 2s? No, maybe it hits on 3s.
Regular knights hit on 3s.
I
don't know if they have an ability to make a knight hit on 2s.
Maybe that's what it is.
It might be a warlord trait.
swear
I think there's a warlord trait.
I've heard that there's a way to get a melee knight on a 2+.
I think it's a warlord trait that allows them, that ups their weapon skill by 1.
How informative we are right now to be like, I think that something exists.
Listen, there's a lot in that codex.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. But regardless, the real exciting thing is not only that Gauntlet is rad, but really the stratagem that accompanies it, which a lot of people have talked about, but it's worth repeating. Death Grip is just so goddamn amazing.
If you have no idea what it is, it's a cheap CP strat that allows you...
It's a 1 CP strat.
That allows you to do a bonus hit with your Paragon Gauntlet or regular fist. They do specifically mention that you can still do it with the Paragon Gauntlet.
Well, of course, you'd want to do it with that one.
So if you hit, D3 mortal wounds against your target, cool.
Which is pretty good. And by the way, this can be against something that you didn't attack.
Yes.
With your previous attack. So you can charge your knight up to, let's say, like an infantry group of guys, stompy feet them all over the place, but...
There's
you
nice
can be right
character
next to a character, or even a tank, or like literally anything that's it has to be a single model.
Yeah.
And you can attack that single model. It works the best on characters
yes.
for things like Farseers, shield captains, and you hit and you do D3 mortal wounds, which you'd think would be good enough for 1 CP, because it's kind of like how most codexes have that, 1 CP shoot an exploding shell, or 1 CP throw a haywire grenade and do D3. But then you get into the best mini game ever.
So you roll a die and add the respective strength of, each player rolls a die and you add the respective strength of both models to it. So, a base strength of a knight is 8. So against anything that's not a knight, it's going to have lower strength.
Yeah.
And if they equal the knight, then it just finishes.
Then they scare you out of there.
But if the knight beats their roll, it does an additional D3 mortal wounds.
And then this happens over and over again.
And it keeps happening until they tie or beat the knight, or the knight kills the model. And then here's the best part, and this has been widely debated, but Jay and I are very much on one side of the fence
and
on
as
this.
you all know, we are the ultimate authority on decisions. Like, truly, if someone disagrees, you can just play this segment, and it's actually law.
Yeah.
Like, GW has been like, we don't know why we put this in our gaming contracts, but for whatever reason, these two idiots dictate final law.
They didn't ask for anything else, but they just asked for this.
Listen, all we want is final say on your rule system.
But because gauntlets have a very fun ability, which is if they kill with an attack from a gauntlet a monster or vehicle, they then get to throw the vehicle.
Yeah.
Which will do the same thing because it says specifically you do an attack from the gauntlet.
So Andrew and I would say, and of course, as we just mentioned, that
Law.
it is law, of course, if Andrew and I make the call on it, of course, that if you death grip something to death and it's a monster in a vehicle, you can throw that shit at something and deal it D3 mortal wounds.
So I mean, just the prospect of grabbing like Morty or grabbing Magnus and crunching him to death and then throwing him at somebody. It just fills that special void.
The visual of it is so funny because it's so like almost anticlimactic of like Mortarion, like this winged reaper with this like bile and pus and like horrifying demonic fumes swirling around him, and like just a knight coming up and just being bad Mortarion and like hitting him a bunch of times with a damage 8 gauntlet.
Yeah, that's assuming the damage 8 gauntlet doesn't already kill him.
Already just like completely wreck him. And Mortarion's just like, you will face the, oh my god, and then just immediately grabbing him by the throat and just squeezing him to death and then throwing him at a Plague Burst Crawler. Now listen, that's inherent. Even if you're a Death Guard player, that's inherently awesome in its own
great.
way.
It's great. If he's doing that to my own vehicles, I'm like, I deserve that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm all for it. Look, guys, I play Eldar. If that thing gets near a Farseer, that Farseer is dead. He's not making it out of there alive.
Well, I think it'd be even funnier because the throwing model does mortal wounds.
Oh,
How
I
hilarious.
can throw my Farseer at somebody.
Well, you can't throw the Farseer because it's not a monster
Oh, you're right,
vehicle.
it's not a
But what
monster.
if he grabbed and crunched one of your wave serpents
He
and then
could.
threw it into the Farseer and just
Ooh.
killed the Farseer with that?
You thought this protected you, did you?
Your shield doesn't protect you against giant flying vehicles.
Just pancake my Farseer with a wave serpent. That is just such a fun thing.
Yes.
That is like some of the cinematic amazing shit that we play this game for, in my opinion.
Yes.
If that doesn't bring great joy and glee to your heart to imagine these funny scenarios, then I don't know what I don't know what I can do for you.
In a lot of ways, that codex brought back a lot of the joy that the game was missing in some respect with regards to the scale.
You got heroes, you got big robots, you got punching dudes with giant gauntlets and throwing them at tanks. I mean, I like amazing.
Yeah. And then like I think the only other relic we'll mention, which is like I love the new knight variant, the gun knight variant. I definitely favor the closer range one. I think it's hilarious because it fires a giant fucking harpoon.
Listen, guys, the giant harpoon, if the gauntlet isn't enough for you, a flat 10 damage harpoon gun.
Except it's not 10 damage. It's 10 plus D3
plus D3
damage.
That's right. It's just like, it's so fun.
It's so
fun. And then I think if you take the house that lets you outflank a knight, you can outflank surprise flamethrower harpoon knight in your face.
So you have to, if you take that knight, it's almost required you make it a character and then you give it the flamethrower that essentially it's the same flamethrower, but it gives it reroll wounds.
Which is,
with that, it makes it essentially the best flamethrower in the game.
It's so good.
A strength 7 -2, a 2 damage flamethrower. That's 3d6 hits.
3 damage?
No, it's 2 damage.
I think it's a 3 damage.
It is 2
flamethrower.
damage. It's 1 damage less than a Yavara, but it has 3d6 hits always. And
Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
and it's strength 7, AP -2, and then the relic makes it reroll all wounds. So it hits automatically with 3d6, and then you're rerolling all of those dice for wounds. It's just so good.
Ugh,
It's just so good.
Gross. And then you can hit some with a harpoon after.
And then you harpoon them, and then quad melt to them, and then missiles that ignore
Now,
damage.
I
and
will say
shit.
this codex did introduce the scariest thing, which is a missile that ignores invulnerable saves and does d6 damage, and with a 1-point stratagem. I believe it's 1 point, or it might be 2.
It might be 2.
It might be 2, but
and can target characters
it can
out
target
of line of
characters
sight.
and ignore line of sight. All right, listen, GW. Come on, man. Like, what are you doing here? Like, ignoring character rule, that's fine, but it also ignores line of sight.
Well, it does. It doesn't normally ignore line of sight without the stratagem. The
oh
stratagem
no!
does.
Oh boy!
But
you're right.
You forgot one part. It's also AP -5, so it doesn't matter if you're in cover and have a 2+ save. You still get no save against
Doesn't
it.
matter. Doesn't matter if you're an Archon with a shadow field. Whoop! That missile finds you and just blows you right up.
It's
Now, luckily, you can only do that on one missile
Each
per
turn.
turn. But still,
It has 4 of them.
two
though.
turns. Your Archons and Farseers are guaranteed dead.
It's
It's just gonna happen.
It has 4 of them. So
Yeah, I mean, jeez, what a freaking silly thing.
great codex though. Awesome stuff. I mean, just making knights actual heroes again. And I mean, I gotta say, like, that army, an army of knights with everything that they have access to, can actually be really scary now.
Yeah, and if in their Imperium, so you can give them like the very minimal. We've talked about this before. 180 points for a Catachan 5 CP battalion with potentially, I think you can give them like those relics where they just get CP back. Like you can give a cheap CP farm to a knight's army, and you can just have almost entirely knights with some guard backing you up to generate CP.
Yeah, because they are CP hungry.
Yep.
And they don't have a lot of models, but I mean,
Listen, if you're not using Death Grip every turn, you are playing the wrong army.
well, also and a lot of people haven't totally experimented with it yet, but it also gives households and stuff to Forge World Knights, which is scary.
Interesting. Very interesting indeed.
Is very threatening.
But very clever how they note all those things in their stratagems of how, like, this can only be a maximum of a 3++ invulnerable. We don't want any of you crazy people thinking you can get 2++ in here.
I don't think.
What is this, 7th edition? Even, like, man, I will say, so proud of how GW has been, like, really tight on that
nipping
stuff.
that shit in the bud.
Like, really the only 2 models that can not even very reliably. One can very reliably get a 2+ invul.
One can guaranteed get it unless he's against a certain army.
Which is Drago.
Is Drago in Grey Knights can get a 2++ every turn
But
unless
listen,
he's against Dark Eldar. That's the only army that can
exactly
stop
that
him.
can stop it because it's a stratagem. Or obviously Archons have a 2+ invul, but it can't be rerolled, and once you take a wound, it's gone. Which great way to balance that item. But like they've been so good about that, and look, a 3++ knight is still
a sermon,
freaking
and
nasty.
a sermon I think is the only other
And a
one
sermon
I can
also in Craft Worlds, where because he has a 3+ invul in close combat, and you can give him protect, which will put him up to a 2+.
Yeah,
but
so,
still really,
very
still
limited.
3++ at best at range.
Well,
so there's still ways to deal with them.
I mean, even things like, with them introducing the demon stratagem that allows you to give +1 invul to a demon unit, even against something like Magnus, he only gets a 3++. There's no reroll ones anymore, so which is a 3++ rerolling ones is basically a 2+.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean that's gone. It's definitely keeping the the motto of everything can die.
It's great.
And I feel like that's a great segue to talk about our seasons of the month.
Man. We were riding this high, and now we got to talk about the things that we're bad at.
And I mean, I feel like you opened the door, Jay.
Fuck.
So you're going first.
Fine. All right. Speaking of Thousand Suns, I got to have a wonderful experience of getting beaten by them recently. So basically, we had this tournament this last month. I know the previous month we weren't able to attend one, but we finally did.
Yes.
This last month we were back on track. Great tournament, had a lot of fun, had a lot of great games. The game I'm about to talk about was also a great game. I learned a lot. I ran into something that I had never really experienced before.
Yeah.
And Classic Jay made his old appearance again of just being a bloodthirsty idiot.
I mean, you should just play Khorne, dude. Like,
just one of these days, right? I'm just going to have to eventually do it. Just be like, this is what it feels like This is what it's like to finally connect with an army.
Burn, kill, maim.
Yeah.
This is my soul has been speaking this for a long time.
Pretty much.
And now I'm finally embracing.
Yeah, I mean, like, as we've already kind of hinted at, I might have overextended myself a little bit in the murder department.
It's an understatement.
You mentioned Khorne, which is ironic because he was very much part of my failing during this game.
I would say he wasn't your failing. He was your punishment.
He was. And boy, did he punish me. And let's get into it. So basically in this tournament, I brought a new version of my Eldar list. It's been slowly evolving. And with the new beta rules in place, I rebuilt the Eldar list. I took out the Wraith Guard, which I had in there, which I loved. I kept the Dark Reapers because they're still great, even when their points going up.
They're standard. You have to have them.
They're just so good. Still keeping it at only one Dark Reaper unit that Deep Strikes in. I still think that's solid. And even after this tournament, I've made a couple changes to the list, and they're still retained in there. But I still had my 3 Wave Serpents with 6 units of Dire Avengers. They put out a lot of shots. And I also had, which is brand new, 3 Flyers. I've added in the Crimson Hunter Exarchs, 2 of them, and 1 Hemlock Wraith Fighter. Now, going into this tournament, again, coming back to the 3 Cs that I never said I would return to, a little controversial, is that I do think Crimson Hunter Exarchs, in certain lists, are potentially better than Hemlocks. And I know for a while, Hemlocks have sat at the tip-top of, like, these are the best flyers for Eldar, they're incredible, and they are very good. It's just, with the current meta as it is, with Drukhari coming into power quite a bit, and a lot of the new lists, especially with a lot of Demon Princes and a lot of flying units, Crimson Hunter Exarchs are really good, and they give my army quite a bit of tools, which again, like I said, Hemlocks and Crimson Hunter Exarchs, it's all dependent on how you build your list.
Well, and even just regular Crimson Hunters are very good. I would say I agree with you only because Hemlocks have one major weakness, and that major weakness is if you want to use them, you have to put them down the throat.
Yeah.
And if they're in the throat, they're getting shot to pieces.
They're getting shot, because no one's going to leave that thing alive. And it's Crimson Hunter Exarchs, they can double down on the trait that you give them, which I gave mine a Latok, which, listen, you're going to take an Air Wing, you're going to make them a Latok. They get a -2 to hit, and they have a minimum range of 36 inches. Sorry, some of their guns have a maximum range of 36 inches, which means you just keep them at a 36-inch distance, and because they have Vector Dancer, you just keep dancing them back and forth on the board, far away from your opponent, getting -2 to hit.
So what you're saying is proper usage from a good player
yes, this
would
is good
be to keep them at their maximum distance and use them conservatively.
Right.
And out of range of things.
Yes.
Especially things that can assault flyers, like flying Demon Princes.
Yes. Yeah, those all sound like good things that I'm saying. It sounds like I learned a lesson. And here we go. So I had my 2 Crimson Hunters and a Hemlock. And I had my Wave Serpents. And I knew kind of going into the game that the Hemlock wasn't really going to serve this build right away. It was the only model I had at the time.
Someone may have suggested that.
Yes. Yep. we knew this going in. I was like, the Hemlock might have to retire after this tournament. But, and again, just for how I play with them. Yeah. But basically the game started, and I actually got first turn. And what I was playing against was a Thousand Suns army. It was kind of a mishmash of a couple different things. It wasn't pure Thousand Suns.
A little bit of World Eaters in there.
It did. It had some World Eaters in there with 3 units of Berserkers. Berserkers are dope. In 2 different Rhinos. And they are very good. And I have killed them from a distance. I have never been assaulted by them. And boy, howdy, is it quite an experience to get charged by Berserkers and not know what they can really do.
Living up to their name.
Really, yeah, they certainly did. And you're sitting there and you're like, they're only 5 Space Marines. What can they do to a Wave Serpent? Well, buddy, about to find out. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. He had 3 units of Berserkers, 2 Rhinos. I believe he had 2 Demon Princes. Both of them were Zench, which, look, they get the 4-up invul, they get 2 psychic powers.
Well, specifically Thousand Suns.
Thousand Suns, Demon Zench Princes. What if I mix them all? Demon Zench Princes. You know, that unit, right? It's got its own unique data slate. That's why you can take so many of them. But basically, with those guys, they got a 24-inch smite, which is really good. They can do 2 powers.
There's also like one big thing in this list that you haven't mentioned yet.
You mean Magnus?
Magnus.
Big old red man himself. Yeah, he was in there. Also Ahriman. also a changeling or a change caster. They're like they're the heralds of Zench, basically. That's what they're called. And I believe they're called like change casters.
Yeah, because with the locust, the demon locust, giving +1 strength to all of demons of a certain type around them. I mean, it's really strong.
But really, it's just because you have another psyker in there to cast crazy awesome powers and do a 24-inch smite, which is unrestricted. You can just do it unlimitedly. So like, it was a very strong psychic smite and close combat, very important list. And when you look at a list like that, and there was a couple other things, there was Nurglings to capture objectives and things like that.
Screening.
And by the way, this player, he's a really competent, solid player, really great guy, had a great game with him, but like, he was a bit surprised by my approach because I had turn 1, and I had a lot of opportunities afforded to me with my army, because it's a tough matchup with kind of how his army is and me going first. It should be a tough matchup for him. Unless the person he's playing is an absolute moron, which I was. Here we go. Turn 1, I get to go first. Magnus is sitting there. He's not buffed up. He's still only a 4 Binvol. I fly my planes across the other side of the board till they're right behind Magnus.
So at a safe distance.
At a very safe distance. Incredibly close to everything.
Like
now,
3 inches behind his flying assault units.
Demon princes, yeah.
That
so
can assault
here's
flyers.
the thought I had, and it wasn't well thought through, is that if I get in there and I kill Magnus, and I have my planes close enough to the demon princes, I can start smiting them. Or not smiting, but I can start sniping them with the planes, right?
Yes.
Stupid plan. Very stupid plan. Because Magnus is still very hard to kill, even with a 4-bin and depowered.
You fly behind Magnus.
Yep.
And his guys.
Yep. My Dark Reapers come in. Now, here's the thing that, again, all this went in my favor. My lonely little warlock runs out into the battlefield. Yeah! Gets within 18 inches of Magnus. Casts Jinx. He fails his deny with Magnus to stop the Jinx. And by the way, he has a +2 to deny. Fails that. Then World Eaters has that on a 4+, they can stop a psychic power. Just stop it.
Yep.
He did that, failed it, used a CP, re-rolled it, failed that. Like, I got everything going my way. I nerfed him, put him to a 5 of Binvol, a 4+ regular save, and I blew away Magnus that turn. What I also did is I moved my entire army up. Not just my planes. I moved all my Wave Serpents out. Because I was like, I'll just get close to Magnus and shoot him with 24-inch range, Shuriken cannon shots. And have my Wave Serpents right there. All he's got is some Space Marines and those Rhinos. What can they do? Here we go. Those Berserkers proceeded to get out the next turn, run up. Each 5-man unit killed a Wave Serpent in close combat, which I was blown away.
Turns out, a unit, when they have 4 attacks each and they swing twice.
And one of them is a power fist, and they've got these swords with like -1 AP, and they can attack twice in a turn. And then on one unit, you can spend a bunch of CPs and have it fight 3 times.
Yep.
I was like, what the hell is happening? So in one go, he kills like 2 Wave Serpents. And cripples one down to like no health whatsoever. His 2 Demon Princes just destroy my planes. Only one is left at this point. And all my Dire Avengers on the table just like, what's going on, guys? I retaliate. I killed some Berserkers. But really at this point, it's cleanup time.
All your mobility is gone.
All my mobility is gone. All my protection is gone. And I'm not deciding the engagement. He is. And he's in my lines. And Dire Avengers are good, but they are squishy. And
especially when they're getting smite.
Especially when they're getting smoted. They're only 5-man units, so smoting is perfect for them, and he's just unrestricted smoting me all over the place with Ahriman, with the Changeling guys, with the 2 Demon Princes, and then anybody left over are all amazing in close combat. They're just charging in and cleaning up the rest of my units. And, by the way, I didn't mention this one thing that he had in his army. A 28 Bloodletter Bomb that came in at the very end.
With a 3d6 charge.
Which a 3d6 charge that came in and cleaned up Dark Reapers and everything else, and like he just cleaned my clock that game. It was great play on his part. It wasn't just me screwing up. He's a very competent player. And like, but I have to say, like, man, it was just one of those moments where, again, Khorne hit me twice. He enticed me to go up there into the lines, and then he paid me back in full by throwing his Berserkers at me.
I also believe there was a rules contention point that it has been ruled a certain way in ITC, but it is a little cheesy.
But it's look.
It is the way the
it's
game
the
is
way
played.
the game is played.
And that is, if you don't know this, heroic intervention means that if you have a character within 3 inches, or if they have special rules that extends that, of an enemy model, as long as you activate the charge phase,
and you don't even charge that unit or anything near it.
Nope. That character can choose to heroic intervention and go into combat.
Which I didn't know, and I declared a charge on somebody across the field. I think I was charging one of his captains, and all the way on the other end, he heroically intervened his demon prince into I think my last wave serpent and just killed it. And I was like, oh, that's how that works.
Yep.
So learned a lot of lessons about close combat that game. Learned a lot of lessons about berserkers that game.
About how not literally the exact opposite way you should be using your planes.
Yeah.
Why did you turn your 2 Crimson Hunters into your fucking Hemlock? They're not. That doesn't even make sense. You treated them all as I'm.
I don't know. What's amazing is that was my second game. The first game I played them exactly how they're supposed to be played, and then that game I was like,
you just
kill everything.
Okay, so this is a problem that Jay and I have, is that we create armies. The armies we play are antithesis to our other armies. I make my Death Watch because I also play Nids and Genestealer Cult, and they fight each other. Just like he plays his Eldar, which also fights Thousand Suns and Necrons because they're Webway Breachers and stuff like that. So I think the problem in that game is you just saw Magnus, and you just got the fucking red blinders.
Yeah, I got
Magnus must kill.
I got the kill bell yeah, and I just had to go full bore into him.
You have a problem, Jay.
I do have a problem. Mistakes were made. I did kill Magnus. I felt good about that.
Good job.
But even after the game, my opponent was like, man, when you sent everything up, I was real surprised. And I was like, yeah, that was a bad move on my part. So, guys, that was my C's. If you've got an army that doesn't want to be right next to a demon prince or a lot of things that smite you, just don't go near those things.
This was mentioned slightly earlier, but it's important to mention that this is a friend of ours who's we discuss competitively and go to see at LVO and stuff like that. And his reaction to your thing, I remember just looking over and seeing it and him just being like, what the fuck? Does he know something I don't?
Am I missing something here? Because he's real dumb. He's a real dumb fella. But yeah, I mean, man, I was a dummy. But that was my C's of the month. Learned a lot from it, and I'm very excited about the tournament coming up in this next month after finally having some of these lessons learned.
A little settled.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, Andrew, what is your C's of the month, Death Watch player?
All right, so this is the first time playing this army in a tournament scene. There were many mistakes made. Many. And
I mean, I think it's very fair when you're playing, dude, you never even play Space Marine even adjacent.
I haven't played Space Marines since 2004.
Yeah.
So,
I remember that army. Dark Angels,
when
man.
I used to play Dark Angels. That was the first army that I actually...
I mean when you used to play Chaos Space Marines.
Man, that you just literally...
So many people...
You just gaslit the entire fucking
I'm
podcast.
Kidding, people. I know there's people are very sensitive about
the
that.
Fallen are totally the loyalists.
I'm just kidding, everybody. I like Dark Angels too.
But yeah, they're totally traitors. But anyways,
jeez.
Yeah, so I used to play Dark Angels way back in the day. But yeah, I haven't played since then. And I loved the Death Watch since I first read their fluff. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, their army struggled. And then when they got their codex and I saw it was in the codex, I was like, fuck yes, I can find. And I mean,
for good reason. The whole last episode we talked about how incredible their stuff is,
and Primaris being there, so you can actually have guys that are 2 wounds and feel like real Space Marines, and it's I love it. I love it.
So good.
But yeah, it's the first time I'm using it. There's a lot of stratagems that I missed. One particular that would have dramatically changed the way games went is I forgot that basically all Space Marine armies have a 2 CP. If a character dies, you get to do another thing before they die.
Yeah, that's pretty good, especially for Contemptor Dreadnoughts.
Well, they weren't Contemptors. They're the Contemptor model. Rule of cool. I was using 2 Chappie Dreads. They're a Forge World Dreadnought. It's a Chappie Venerable Dreadnought, and they're HQs. They're 9 wound characters, so they can't be targeted.
So good.
And I use them with double last cannons because there's some early anti-tank, and they are the bee's knees.
They have 2+ to shoot.
2+ to hit and 2+ to shoot.
2+ to hit and 2+ to shoot?
Yeah, 2+ weapon skill, 2+ ballistic skill, you son of a bitch. And
2+ to hit, 2+
now, I mean,
to
they
shoot,
are
baby.
-1 if they move and fire their last cannons, but then they're like normal Space Marine ballistic skill.
Yeah,
and
it's
if you have a captain nearby, then it's
pretty good, regardless.
Yeah, and then you have captain nearby, and it's 3+ rerolling once, whatever. So they're very good. They will always be on my list. I love them. But there were definitely multiple times in games where like I forgot that their characters. I forgot really that I even had that stratagem, and they could have done shit as they died.
I mean, that still though, that's like the classic like new codex, especially with this edition. It's going to take a very long time to remember all those stratagems.
Yeah, but it was like something that I should have specifically like highlighted, like this for all of the reasons is very important.
Whenever one of these die, do this.
But so my first game I actually did pretty well and got to see the power of special issue ammo and the power of the mixed intercessor squads with plasma, having Hellblasters in there and stuff like that. Very powerful.
Do you want to talk about what one of your units looks like?
Oh, so yeah. So what I'm running right now is I'm running multiple units that are essentially copy pasta. They're the same thing because redundancy is important.
Indeed.
So I'm running, my troops are just intercessors. I'm actually no longer running veterans, and that's because I like having the double wounds over having invul saves.
It makes them really resilient.
But I'm running, the core 5 intercessors, which you have to take. The auxiliary grenade launcher because it's 1 point and it makes a 30-inch grenade. Why not?
Yeah.
And then my other 5, which can be in any combination of Reavers, Aggressors, Hellblasters, or Inceptors. I take 1 Inceptor, of course, because it gives the unit fall back and shoot, which is the best thing ever. And turns out really infuriating for assault armies when they can't tie down literally anything I have.
Yeah.
I give them the double plasma as well because I essentially have half the unit as anti-infantry type stuff, the 5 intercessors, and then the other half is all plasma, so it's 4 Hellblasters and 1 Inceptor, everything plasma.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I will say this. The unit having a core 30-inch range, 15-inch rapid fire is very key. And that's because with the new changes to reserves, that allows you to deep strike into your own deployment zone turn 1 and still engage a lot of targets. And that happened in my first game against 3 Shadow Swords.
Are Hellblasters also max range 30 inches?
They're 30-inch rapid
wow,
fire.
so both their guns, that's a great, that they
Yes.
both mirror exactly the same profile.
And then, now the Inceptor is only 18-inch range, but that means it has a further, essentially, rapid fire distance than the rest of them. But, yeah, it's very strong that they have, the group has 30-inch guns. And they're hard to engage because they're 2 wounds each, and there's a lot of them, and they have good, morale, and you can, the Space Marine ability that you can reroll your morale checks and stuff like that.
That's great, and they know, and they shall know no fear.
Yep, and so I was using 3 units of that combo, 2 Chappy Dreads with double ass cannons. I had 2 actually battalions of Deathwatch, which I will no longer be using. I'll be using 1 battalion, but. In total, I had a bunch of characters, a bunch of Deathwatch, a bunch of different things I was trying, and I randomly chucked Cypher in there because I just had to try Cypher.
Yeah, well,
once.
you got a really cool painted model of Cypher.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on it.
We actually, believe it or not, we got to get better at posting some of the pictures of the things that we do. I feel like we talk about our armies all the time, and then we never post any of the pictures
I feel
of
like
them.
it's so hard for us to complete armies that, because we change stuff so often.
Yeah.
But...
we'll have to post some stuff.
We'll definitely post some stuff. So have I dodged the
No,
seasons
you haven't.
enough?
You still got to talk about it.
Oh man. All right, so the first game, the first mistake that I made, we're going to talk about Cascade Effect. There's going to be a lot of seasons all in one. Just sort of like what Jay's story was of just like how everything was the wrong choice.
Yeah.
This is the same thing. So first game, the one big mistake I made was to not charge a Shadow Sword with the guys out of line of sight and 2 inches away before I charged one of my Trappy Dreads that are characters, so he couldn't normally target them.
Oh, boy.
Which then allowed him to do a 5+ Overwatch with a volcano cannon and just evaporate it.
Yep, that'll happen.
That was a mistake.
Oh, man.
So that was just sort of like, well, I fucked that up. But then the second game, which of course then I could have spent 2 CP and had him shoot.
Yeah. Again, gotta remember that strategy.
Whoops. The second game though, sort of it was like an everything went wrong. and I was playing against a real good friend of ours who plays actively in our tournaments, and we kind of had this thing going where like every time that we went to this tournament, he would bring a thing, and I would somehow bring the exact counter.
Yeah, you'd somehow, and without knowing anything that either he was going or he would be there, what army he'd have, you would just, by like serendipity, just like bring the exact opposite list.
Like, if you knew 7th edition rules at all, like Grav was like the death to vehicles, because as long as you just like wounded it, it would immobilize a vehicle, which was ridiculous.
Oh my god.
And so there's like one tournament in that edition where he was like, I'm bringing all dreads and vehicles, and I was like, I have 90 grav shots, and he was just like, what the fuck? And then the next tournament he was like, guess what, I have no vehicles, it's all infantry, and I was like, I have 27 sniper drones, and he was just like, you fucking son of a bitch.
How has this happened every time?
So this game in this last tournament, this was comeuppance time. This was just desserts. He had
been waiting.
He had been waiting. This is lying in wait. So this was like, because he fucked me up real hard. He was using a chaos smattering list, I'll call it.
Ooh, a nice smattering, eh?
So he had like a forge-rolled dreadnought that has a lot of artillery. He had this crazy Rhino artillery tank that's from Forge World that I never heard of. It's basically like a Rhino, like a super whirlwind. It's got a big cannon on it and stuff like that.
Man, a lot of things happen on Forge World I have no idea about.
He had a Khorne Demon Prince.
I at this point, like, someone could bring a made-up thing and just be like, yeah, it's Forge World. And I'd be like, all right.
He had a Khorne Demon Prince. He had a unit of the Nurgle Blight Drones, the big fly demons and stuff like that. He had a big unit of cultists. I think it was 39 cultists, obviously.
Makes sense.
And cultists and this other unit I'll mention in a second, they were both Alpha Legion, so then he, of course, could infiltrate them with the stratagem and put them right in my face.
Yep.
And then he had a unit that I don't see enough, and now that I've fully seen them in action, I'm like, they are so good and everyone should use them. And he had a unit of 20 Noise Marines.
Ooh.
And Noise
Guys
Marines...
just rocking out with
I told you,
badass
smattering.
Metal music.
Yeah, coked out of their minds.
Yeah,
just
pretty
like,
much.
So if you don't know what they do, they have an interesting rule. Not counting the stratagem that everybody uses that allows a Slanesh infantry unit to shoot a second time.
Which people mostly see that, endless cacophony on obliterators or
yes.
cultists even, but not usually on Noise Marines.
But it's already strong on Noise Marines. But then Noise Marines have another ability that they're basically so coked out that when they die, they get to act again for free.
Oh, so you're talking about like the ancient, like the one with the banner in Space Marines?
Oh, so it's not even like that where it's like a die roll.
Yeah, it just happens no matter
just
what.
to get it.
Jeez.
So like it's shooting at them is like the worst thing because you shoot them and then they just still shoot you anyway, which is not fun.
Damn.
And I mean like he had like a bunch of blast masters. He had a couple of the sonic the flamer version of their sonic weapons. And yeah, killing that unit was just like the biggest fucking chore because it's just like every time I'm killing guys, he's killing guys in return. I'm just like, I don't want mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
Like I was already struggling hard enough as it was. But basically where everything went wrong with this army is that I essentially gave him all of the targets he needed to essentially cripple my army. So I had a good chance of going first, but I did not. I, in fact, did not go first in any game of this tournament.
Yay!
Which helps to go first with my army. I like going first. Like all my armies I build.
Man, I like going first too. Like, I know you can win by going second, and sometimes you can even do better if you go second. But like, I don't know, man. It's just nice to go first.
I just like to be the first out the gate. I like alpha striking. It's just my thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the way he was positioned is that his tank was behind the ruin way back. Like, there's almost no way I can get to that other than a strategy that I should have implemented that I didn't because I got confused and then didn't do it.
Nice.
So, Deathwatch, I have a Deathwatch captain. He has the relic, the Beacon Angelus.
Oh, yeah. The super flashlight.
Yeah, so why this is important is because it allows him to then deep strike into a zone that maybe only he can fit and then deal with some, like, charge, deal with some guys, and then leave that combat because he has a jetpack and then teleport a unit in. Mm-hmm. So it essentially throws your opponent off because it's like, well, you can't get the infantry unit in, but then he can go into an infantry unit, deal some damage, clear some space, then leave, or he falls back away from him, and then that leaves open space for then another unit to get there. So I didn't do that. I was supposed to do that because that would have gotten rid of that stupid tank thing and then probably gotten rid of his dreadnought as well. But, I didn't do that. So that happened.
Nice.
I decided turn 1 to deep strike everything into my deployment zone to try and kill the stuff that was there, which then didn't leave a contingency of what to do with the dreadnought.
Other stuff that was across the board.
Or the bloat drones, or the plague drones, or the Khorne demon prince, or basically everything else that was coming at me.
Jeez.
And so I deep struck everything in, and I was like, everything was, well, first of all, I put some things in line of sight to his dreadnought with all the guns, which was just like, why? There's a giant ruin in my face. Why did I do that? And so I did that, which was already stupid. And then I could have just also abandoned my deployment zone, just been like, it's turn 2. I'm just going that way.
I'm out of here, peace. Because
And-
you have like almost half your army deep strikes.
Yeah, so like I could have just been away, and then like all of his stuff is now in the open. His dreadnought has no line of sight targets, and it would have been smarter. But we're talking about us here, so
Yeah.
So I deep strike everything into his face, which also deep struck everything into line of sight to his noise marines, which then
Basically, you created your own kill box for him.
yes, basically.
Nice.
So then the one good thing to come out of this is I did manage to wipe out his cultists completely, so they
Before
couldn't
they
regenerate.
could regen. Nice.
So that was the one good thing. The other bad things were, me putting everything into line of sight of his noise marines, which then I shot his noise marines with 1 unit, killed 5 guys who then, as they die, shoot my unit that hasn't shot yet and kill like 3 guys, and then and then it just did this repeated effect of just like where I'm losing stuff more than he's losing stuff. And it got to the point where then I'm so frustrated that I'm forgetting stratagems. Now, I will mention, in very Andrew Dickinger fashion, my dice just took a dirt nap that game. I mean,
Nice.
there's...
You do have like some kind of psychic power that is to like ice cube your dice.
When
at,
I'm
like,
having a bad time.
at like if you
It
start
just
having
goes-
a bad time,
goes
it
from
just
bad
like,
to worse.
It just off a cliff. Your dice just ones
Like,
across the board.
It got bad enough that my opponent, who's a buddy of mine, was like, dude, like, he had to like sit down because he was like, make it a game. Like, this is like he was like, it got to the point where my dreadnoughts...
I like that you were losing so hard that it was frustrating for your opponent.
Yeah, I mean, my dreadnoughts, who are T7, 9 wounds, and have a 3+ save and a 6 up feel no pain, were getting shot by bolter guns, and I'd fail like 8 of 11 3+ saves.
Nice.
And it was just like, what is going on?
It's like your guys are just stumbling around like whoop, 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 and just shooting each other, and it's just like, what is even happening?
So then,
here?
like, that frustration, like, this is what I was saying, the cascade effect, where I made bad mistakes, which then put me in a worse position, which then made my dice gold, and then it just got infinitely worse, and then I was just like, this is just a bad time.
this is it.
But I think, like I said, it was just comeuppance for our previous
Yeah.
engagements to the point where he just had to fucking table me and do it in the most demoralizing fashion possible.
Well, I'm glad that you guys could finally even the scales there.
Learned a lot. Learned a lot of what not to do.
Yeah.
And, how to properly utilize an army.
It was a good learning tournament.
Well, I think this is what I took from that, because like once again, I was starting a new army that I hadn't played before, and most of the armies I played were like very heavy. You have to invest immediately. Like, I mean, even my NIDS was like, you have turn 1. If you don't do well, you're fucked type of thing.
Nice.
And so I think I was too in that mindset that even with the reserves change, I was like, I have to put everything in now and do as much of a dent as possible, where I would have just been better off just like forcing him to enclose deeper onto my deployment zone, which essentially gives him no benefit, and then just leave.
Yeah.
Because I had that option.
And then he's forced to either commit in different places or split his field, or he has to move units that probably won't be in range for a turn.
Yeah, and then
it gives you opportunity to disrupt his counter to you.
And I can crush his backfield, and then he's chasing down Death Watch that are shooting him every turn, which is never a good thing. And like, it just would have been better off. And luckily in the third game, I learned my lesson, and I, appropriately deployed my army and then did much better. But yeah, I mean, it was bad. It was real bad. Oh,
Whew, what a doozy this last tournament was. Fun times.
Some good victories and some crushing
That was your
defeats.
second game, right?
That was game 2.
Both you and I, our second games were just like crippling.
We're like, we're at like a 9, now it's at a -16.
Just wham, right in the floor. Oh boy. Well, guys, those are our seasons of the month. By the way, we wanted to try something new. If you guys have any of your own seasons that you want to share with us, what we'd love to is if you want to send them in to us at rolltoseas@gmail.com, we'd love to read through them. And honestly, if there's a really great, if not hilarious, but truly terrible seas, and you were comfortable with it, we'd love to even share it on the next episode next month.
Absolutely.
So send them our way. Again, that's rolltoseas@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you guys, because I'm sure we're not the only ones that make mistakes. Or maybe we are. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely up there.
Yeah, we definitely are. Well, guys, on to our main segment, the Brown Library. Here we are in the Brown Library, and it's another switcheroo list episode.
You mean where Jay's actually taking some responsibility for
I
once?
am taking responsibility and taking my newfangled reading talents to another new codex.
Did you not know how to read for a long time?
I knew how to read, all right?
I mean, I meant the Chaos books.
That's like
you
with the
didn't.
symbols on the pages, right? The symbols?
I mean, there's definitely more to reading demon books than that.
That's true. Very true.
Right?
There's
State
all the
of mind,
rituals. There's all the blood.
State of
Jeez.
mind. State of mind.
State
has
of
a lot
mind's
to
very
do with it.
important too. Yeah, just it's hard to read. I mean, really, maybe it's because it's so intimidating to read books in this library.
Yeah, I mean,
because reading books in this library is a pain, literally.
Yeah, I didn't mean like high Gothic. I meant just like here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could barely read any of the books here. I could read normal stuff, but reading in this library is insane. It will drive you nuts.
I wonder who had all the fucking possessions and shit.
Yeah.
Anyways, what are we talking about
Wait,
this month?
did you just say something about possessions?
No, I didn't mention that.
You know I had to put the special bucket in an emergency break in case Andrew gets possessed again box, right? It's right here.
Listen, one of us had a problem with dust. The other
One of us had a problem with dust? Which one of us do you think had a problem with dust?
You had the dust problem.
You were the one with the dust problem.
I had the soulstone problem.
No, you had all the problems. The dust and the spirit stones.
Bullshit. Just deflecting.
Yes,
Like
you
usual.
are.
No, you are.
Oh my god.
Tell us what we're doing, Jay.
Fine. We're talking about Harlequins, everybody. Yay! Harlequin Codex.
Clowns from outer space.
Clowns from outer space. Clowns from the Webway. Clown Town, party time, all
USA.
the time. Yes, USA. That's the name of the codex. It's a really long name for a codex.
I mean, USA just stands now for Ultimate Space Awesome. So
Yes,
I mean, like,
it does. So, I mean, I feel like everybody knows that, right? Didn't mean anything else previously, did it?
Of course not.
Huh, weird. But but basically, Clown Town is here, and Clown Town is ready to get down all the time. Good intro. Here we go. So basically, last time I talked about the Necrons, I have a Necron army, so I was excited to talk about them. And now I talked about them a little bit last month, but now we're going to take this month to focus in on old Harlequins.
I'm going to dive into an army designed by
The
None
madness that is myself.
the madness that is Jay, the bloodthirsty son of a bitch.
Yeah, and this is an army that definitely pays dividends for being extra bloodthirsty, because you only have one option, and that's go at their face.
So your Harlequins are Khorne.
They are Khorne Harlequins. Wait, what?
Corniquins.
Hold on, I heard something around us. We got to be careful when
Weird
we talk
laughter
about.
coming from the
We
walls.
talk about clowns in here, but basically, my army, Harlequins. And if you don't know anything about Harlequins, Harlequins are really freaking cool. Harlequins are basically
not biased at all.
Not biased at all, or biased for our lives here in the Black Library. The Harlequins are basically the Death Watch of Eldari, where essentially they take the best from craft worlds, from Drukhari, from even the Exodite worlds, which if you don't know, Exodite, what's that? That's not a codex. It might be eventually, which would be great. But Exodite worlds are the Eldari that live on actual planets,
Yes.
not on craft worlds or in the Webway. And they ride dinosaurs. It's real cool. Will they ever get models? I can only hope so, because man, doesn't that sound fun. But basically, you come to the Harlequins, either they pick you or select you, or you kind of find your way to the Harlequins, like you could be a Drukhari in the Dark City in Kamora or Kamarag or, you know, all the ways that you can pronounce that word. And you're wandering down a back alley and you hear laughter, you follow it, and somehow you find your way tricked into the labyrinth of different parts of the webway into the Black Library.
Now, we should qualify something very specific, which is once you become a Harlequin, you are forever a Harlequin.
You're in it for life.
It's 12 years in Death Watch, and then you can go back to your chapter.
Not in Harlequins. Harlequins, you actually, it's really cool. So however you get there, whether you choose to seek them out or they seek you out, once you are indoctrinated into the Harlequins, you actually even kind of lose your personality. Now, some Harlequins have names, but in a lot of cases, they're not their original name. And they typically take on a new role. They step into the Harlequins, and just like you see, if you've seen Harlequins before, they look like clowns doing these flips and leaps and jumps. They're players.
Meant to be the faceless arms of the Laughing God, essentially.
Yes. And the Laughing God who they worship is Kegorok. And Kegorok is basically known, other than Isha, to be like the last living Eldari god.
If it actually is a god. I don't think it's actually confirmed anywhere.
But nothing's ever really confirmed in the 40k universe.
Well, I mean, they totally confirmed the existence of Isha because Nurgle's like torturing her constantly.
Her. Terrible. But Kegorok, I mean, he's out there.
He was even mysterious to the Eldar gods, the other Eldar gods.
Yeah, he's basically... Kegorok is the trickster god of the Eldari.
Think of him as the antithesis or a foil to Zinch.
Yes.
He's like...
He loves messing with Zinch, but he also super hates Slaanesh, because obviously Slaanesh killed all the Eldar.
The Eldar killed themselves.
Yeah,
Jay.
well, yes, that's true. That's true. But, also Slaanesh.
Debauchery.
Debauchery brought them down. Stop with the debauchering. But basically, Kegorok is kind of like their mascot, quote unquote.
Super Harlequin.
Is the Super Harlequin the one that they worship, and if they pray to Kegorok.
He's Loki.
But he's a super trickster. Basically, they live in the webway. The Harlequins operate out of the webway and strike at different points in the universe to really protect the Eldari race as a whole. Like I said, they pull from the different factions, but they really serve all of Eldari.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing in my eyes with regards to the background of the Harlequins is that essentially they don't, because Craftworld Eldar or Craftworld Eldari and Drukhari, they do not like each other.
They're not buddies. They don't see eye to eye.
Probably because the Drukhari are still doing the same things that cause
super torture evil
the
monsters.
birth of Slaanesh.
Yeah.
Whereas, the Craftworlds are probably like, we shouldn't do that anymore. Well, fuck you. We're in the webway. All right.
Yeah.
So, but the Harlequins are like, hey, we're all friends here.
Guys, we're all Eldari. We're all space keeblers.
We're all superior to everyone else.
We got to protect the cookies.
Because you got to forget the, superiority complex of the Eldar.
Yeah, well, listen, no race in 40k has superiority complexes. Only the Eldari race has them, right? Right?
I mean, the only ones that are actually superior are the orcs, Jay. I mean, let's just remember.
Shots fired. I mean, not accurately on a 5+, but still,
But there's lots of them.
There's lots of them. It's very loud, very exciting. Jokes, but basically, we're talking about Harlequins. We got to make some jokes and japes and gesturings.
Do they ever speak, really? I guess
no,
they
do. They do,
actually, because Call was whispered to one called
from the Veiled Path.
Yes.
So this kind of rolls
Shadow
into,
Walker.
before we start talking about the list, I want to give a little bit of background to the faction if you don't know much about them. There's different kind of masques of the Harlequins.
They're chapters.
Much like their chapter tactics you see of other armies, and the masques function very differently, just like different chapters do in other armies.
Their masks are really good.
Where like the Veiled Path, where if you're deep into the lore of like what happened with Call and the essentially Cadia exploding, there was a Shadowseer.
The fall of Cadia's story.
Yeah, where basically there's a Shadowseer, and Shadowseers are kind of like their basically they're psychers of
mystics.
The army. They're mystics essentially, and they're usually tricksters. They have these kind of like mirror masks. So they're a lot of the Harlequins you see have these like kind of either terrifying like grisly masks or these smiling masks.
Oh, they're very much. What do they call those masks?
They're they're basically mirrors. They're
no, I'm
reflective.
saying the Harlequin, the like the classic.
Oh yeah, I mean they're kind of referred to in classic history as like I think like Harlequinade or Harlequin pantomime masks or things like that.
Essentially the theatrical classic frown face, smiley face masks,
and sometimes skull smiley face.
Whereas yes, the Shadowseer, it's very much a roiling. It can be lots of things.
Yeah, it's supposed to like kind of reflect back on your own self and mess with you. Either way. And this was one from the Veiled Path, which is a tricky mask. And there are masks like the Midnight Sorrow that just purely attack demons and fight back Slaanesh. So there's a lot of cool different masks and a lot of cool history. I really recommend digging into the Harlequins if this is of any interest to you, because it's a really cool faction. They've got this really cool history, and really they are, for Eldari, like the kind of the true fighters of the good fight. They're very tricky, they're very secretive, but they are overall trying to fight for the good of their race and beat back the darkness and chaos in Slaanesh, which is really cool.
I think another thing I like about them, sort of in the same vein as the Inquisition for the Imperium, which is part of the reason why one of the main forces of Eldar that the Inquisition works with is the Harlequins, because they also guard the Black Library.
Which is where we currently live. And the Black Library, if you don't already know, which you should, because we're always podcasting from here, is essentially
a repository
of all the most powerful artifacts and knowledge in the universe.
Mostly forbidden knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, we can't even get into most of the subsections and different stacks.
They definitely don't check half the shit I'm looking through.
Yeah.
I guess they just don't see us as threats.
Probably we're not threats. I mean, let's be honest. We can't read half of this stuff.
It's
Some
true.
of those books, I believe, are made of crystal in different dimensions.
Yeah.
How do you begin to read that thing?
It's just got to get on the right wavelength, Jay.
I guess so. Jeez, it's hard enough just to memorize different languages, but getting on the right wavelength to read a certain paragraph?
Yeah, you just have to elevate your consciousness. It's not hard.
God, no wonder it's been taking Ahriman years to figure out how to get to the Black Library. He's got to figure out how to figure out how to read this
Demon
shit.
dust, I'm just saying. Anyways.
You better not be... Oh, Jesus. We're going to be in so much trouble if Ahriman gets in here somehow.
But yeah, the essentially they're like the inquisitorial arm of the Eldari, where they essentially have absolute authority and sort of are untouchables
in certain ways. Yeah, like they obviously, when, let's say, if they're on a craft world ship in Biel-Tan, like they still have to respect the authority and leadership there, but they have a bit more sway and a bit more gravitas when one shows up and is like, hey, you need to work with X faction or X group for the greater good. In most cases...
Get here, chaos bad.
They will parlay and work with the Harlequins because they know they are acting in the larger scheme of things.
Also, it's just, because of their unfettered access to the webway and knowledge of the webway and knowledge of forbidden knowledge in general, it's probably good to have them on your side.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, close to the Drukhari, probably even better than the Drukhari, the Harlequins are the masters of the webway. They know every little pocket and way in and out. I mean, sure, there's probably some things they don't know about, but
Kegrock is supposed to be the knower of the webway.
The knower of the webway. The laughing god himself. But anyways, we've given enough background, so let's talk about the list.
Yes.
So this list I'm very excited about because it's actually melding 3 detachments and 3 different masks together. Heresy indeed. Now, the first mask to talk about, I talked about this a little bit last month, so I'm not going to go as heavily in depth into it, but it is the Soaring Spite. In my opinion, probably the best mask.
Obsessed.
It's so stupidly good. It, again, is just like a mask I would have designed myself. If somebody was like, what do you want in the Harlequin Codex? I would have been like, here it is. And it's exactly this mask. Basically, their ability, if you don't remember, is as long as they're in a transport, or as long as the thing, I think, can fly, as long as it has fly, essentially, if they advance, their pistol weapons count as assault weapons, and they do not suffer the penalties for advancing with assault weapons, which means they don't get the -1.
Yep.
So essentially how this translates with Harlequins is Harlequins don't have very many units in their codex. I think they have 7 units in their entire codex.
Mostly independent characters, and then essentially a troop unit, and then some transports.
Exactly.
Bikes.
And then, one transport. And the number 1 transport, the only one they have is the Starweaver, and it's a really good transport. It's got 6 wounds, it's T5, it's got a -1 to hit, and a 4+ invul. It's really good.
Eldar just has the best transports, just saying.
They do. No disagreements here.
Some bullshit.
Hey,
going on.
Space elves. They love that grav tech.
Fucking Keeblers.
Pretty good.
Those pointy-eared bastards.
Woohoo! Anyways, the Starweaver, essentially this detachment is a battalion detachment. It's the Mask of the Soaring Spite. It's 3 Starweavers. Again, these are the transports. And in each Starweaver, I have exactly the same Troupe unit. Troupe is there. I say Troupe, and it's going to get confusing, and I apologize. Troupe is spelled Troupe, standing like a troupe of players.
Yeah, as in a theatrical troupe.
Yes, because earlier I was talking about how Harlequins fight as if they are like putting on a play, but the play is they're killing you. Basically
their trademark saying is we've come to dance the dance of death.
And when they go to war as if they're putting on a production that you didn't know you were a part of and are the main attraction of as they kill you.
Psychotic.
Yeah,
I mean, they're just crazy.
It's pretty awesome.
You would say that they have dementia.
I would say that they've got rad clown flippin' ninja skills, my friend. Because I also fear for my life. Now, these troops are also the troop choice of the Codex. So again, it's a little confusing, but the troops are the troops. Yeah. I know it sounds like I'm saying
Harlequin troop.
Harlequin troop is the troop choice of the Codex. It's the only troop choice. There's only one.
Just said Harlequin.
Yes, he did. But basically, there are 3 troops, each of them in a Starweaver, and in Soaring Spite, they're all kitted out the exact same way. They all have Harlequin blades, which are basically like the basic...
It's a close combat weapon.
It's a close combat weapon. It's user strength. It's 1 damage, nothing special, no -1 AP or anything like that. So they're strength 3, so it's not great, but they each have 4 attacks apiece, so they can really blender up some decent stuff.
Massive
if they get into
attacks.
close combat. But that's not what this that's not what the Soaring Spite is for. They're also all armed with a fusion pistol.
Yep.
Which means 15 fusion pistols in 3 different vehicles. And the reason why is because Soaring Spite, like I said with their mask faction, they can essentially fly up the board. The Starweavers go 16. They can advance an auto 6 inches. So they automatically go 22 inches when they advance. And because they're Soaring Spite, they can advance 22 inches and still shoot out the side because the vehicles are open-topped with their fusion pistols. That's right.
Yep.
That's a 28-inch threat radius. It's really good.
Melta strong.
So they're really great at obviously taking out monsters, vehicles, nasty stuff.
So what's your HQs in this detachment?
The HQs in this detachment is 1 Troupe Master and 1 Shadowseer. As we talked about, Shadowseers are like their Psychers.
Mystics.
The Shadowseers just got a Shuriken pistol and a Mistave, a nice little smacky stick. Hit you in the face with it.
Got bonk.
Yeah,
Gotta have that bonk.
Got a bonk stick. And the Troupe Master, which you'll see more of in this army, the Troupe Master in this is armed with a fusion pistol, of course, and is also given a Caress. Caress will come up a little bit more later on, but Caresses are, like, for close combat, probably one of the best weapons out there.
+2, I believe, if I'm correct, +2 strength, -2 AP.
That's correct. 1 damage, yeah, which is really good because it makes Harlequin strength 5, and as everybody knows, in 8th edition, strength 5 is the magic strength.
Yeah, I mean, strength 5, AP -2 is very strong.
Is very, very good. And essentially, Troupe Masters are incredible for a couple reasons. One, they've got 5 attacks, so they're hitting on 2s. They've got the strength 5 -2 with the Caresses. They've got a fusion pistol, so they're also ballistic skill 2+.
But what buffs do they give to other Harlequins?
Well, they've got this incredible buff. I believe it's called like something of war, artisan of war. But essentially, for the Troupe Master and any Harlequin troops or Harlequin units actually within 6 inches of this Troupe Master can reroll wounds in close combat. Really strong. Which is really good when you arm a lot of close combat Harlequins with something that has a strength 5, then you're wounding everything in the game at the most on a 5+ that's rerollable, and you're wounding everything else on mostly 3s that's rerollable.
But it even makes the standard ones with just the close combat weapons suddenly more deadly when even their strength 3 is now rerolling all wounds, which can help. I mean, 4 attacks it's still a lot. Weight of attacks will still come into play.
It goes a long, long way. So Troupe Masters are, in my opinion, the staple choice for an HQ unit in Harlequins. Now, with the rule of 3 in place, rule of 3 really does hurt the Harlequins quite a bit.
You mean because you can't do your old thing of having 6 troops
of just
and
a
6
billion
Troupe
Masters? They're so good. I used to have so many Troupe Masters, and it's a bummer because the Codex itself only has 2 HQ choices. It's a Shadowseer or a Troupe Master, and I like the Shadowseer, but I think the Troupe Master for how I like to play Harlequins is more my choice, and I just can't take more than 3 now, which means if I want to take 2 battalions, I gotta have another Shadowseer in there.
Yeah, you have to suffer with the rest of us, Jay. Not suffer. We wanted this rule to happen. So
We wanted this.
to deal
it's true.
with it.
It's just for an army like Harlequins. It's a bummer.
You can't have it like
I
when you
have
want
it
it.
all.
You can't have it when you want it, Jay. It's there.
Listen, I just want exceptions for just the armies I play. Isn't that rational, guys? Listen, I think it's totally normal for me to just have the restrictions on other armies, just not on my own,
It's as
right?
logical as your
Right?
your demented space clowns.
Right?
So what you said this is 3 detachments. So
That's right.
What is your other 2 detachments?
So, last thing to point out in Soaring Spite is we also have a unit of Skyweavers. It's a unit of 5 Skyweavers. Skyweavers are really good. They're I don't think you should take too many of them, but one good unit is great.
Harlequin bikers.
They're basically jet bikes, and they have 2 Harlequins on each bike. You got a guy steering it, you got a little Harlequin on the back, like
barely hanging on.
barely hanging on, but ready to stab people.
Those things are lickety split.
And they're 3 wounds apiece, so they're durable. They also have 4 up invols, which is really good. And with a Harlequin stratagem called Prismatic Blur, after you advance them, which you always want to be doing, they can have a 3++, basically a 3-up invulnerable, which is pretty good.
You keep mentioning the 4-up invul. I mean, I think it should just be pointed out. All Harlequins.
All Harlequins have a 4-up
4-up
invul.
invul.
Everything is a 4-up invul. I won't have to mention it ever again. One thing that and look, if you don't know about Harlequins, I will point this out. Harlequins' general, kind of thing that the whole army gets is this thing called Rising Crescendo, where everything in the army, I think with the exception of vehicles, but Skyweavers, the jet bikes, and players, they all have this thing called Rising Crescendo, where they can always charge even though they advanced, and they can always fall back and still shoot in charge, no matter what.
Yep.
Which is amazing.
They're all mini knights.
Which means, you're always going to probably be advancing Skyweavers, and you're always going to be advancing or charging or falling back with Harlequins.
they're gene stealers with fly and guns.
It's good. It's real good. But basically, Skyweavers have Zephyr Glaives, which are pretty decent. They make them strength 4, I think, -2 AP, 2 damage. These blades, so in close combat, they do some decent work.
They're not strength 5.
No, they're not strength 5, they're strength 4. But basically, they go in, they mess you up in close combat with 2 damage. But really, the cool thing about Skyweavers is they have Haywire Cannons. And Haywire Cannons got a huge boost in the new Harlequin Codex from where they were at the Index. They went from being a D3 shot to a D6 shot.
Ooh.
And they went from, I believe, being heavy to being assault.
Ooh.
So, with Rising Crescendo, and with Soaring Spite, which remember, if you advance, you don't get any minuses anymore to your shots. These Skyweavers, which auto 6 on their move, can move 22 inches, still fire D6 shots from their Haywire Cannons at full ballistic skill, regular ballistic skill, and then can still charge at the end of that phase with their Zephyr Glaives.
I mean, it sounds fun.
Sounds pretty fun, right? So with 5 guys, you're rolling 5d6. So Haywire Cannons, they're really, really good. First off, they've got pretty decent range. They've got a 24-inch range, which again, on a vehicle that can move 22 and still fire normally, it's a pretty good threat radius.
Reasonable.
And
With fly.
with D6 shots. So you're rolling 5d6, strength 4, -1 AP, 1 damage, but that's not the real kicker. These Haywire Cannons have a pretty schmexy ability when it comes to hitting vehicles. If you're attacking a vehicle and you roll to wound, on any 4 pluses, you deal a mortal wound in addition to your regular damage. And any 6s are D3 mortal wounds.
So essentially, they're very similar to the Tyrannid shock cannon.
Yes.
Same basic ability. Which the best part about that ability, and it infuriates the shit out of people, is that even if you wouldn't normally wound on a 4+,
you wound with mortal wounds.
You still do a mortal wound.
Well, it's because most vehicles have at least a T5. So 4s aren't actually going to deal a wound, but they will deal a mortal wound with the Haywire ability.
Yep.
So these guys are really good at flying up, taking down a vehicle or 2, and then charging into a unit, and then again bouncing in and out of combat. So they're great. Skyweavers are cool. Again, I believe a good single big unit is good because you can buff them up and just fly them at the enemy.
It's not the roll to see his way, Jay. You need at least 3.
I
of
need
them.
3. That's right. God,
Maxed
we're really
out.
limited on maxing out all these crazy units. Now the next battalion. We've got the Frozen Stars. Pretty straightforward, while Soaring Spite's got a lot of silly shit. Frozen Stars are a really great basic buff. They just get a +1 attack if they charge.
Frozen Stars is probably my favorite of the masks.
It's really good. I mean, you're troops, your regular guys, go from having 4 attacks to 5 attacks on the charge. Your troop masters, which again, there's 2 troop masters in this battalion because troop masters are amazing close combat. That's where you want to double down on troop masters. They have 6 attacks on the charge.
It's a lot.
Amazing. And now this battalion, again, 3 Star Weavers, so mirroring the same makeup of our Soaring Spite battalion. But this time around, instead of fusion pistols, we've traded in fusion pistols. They all have Shuriken pistols. Instead, they're all armed with caresses. So there's 5 caresses in each of the troops. Every man's got a caress.
So you think about that, I mean, it's 25 attack, strength 5, AP -2, 1 damage. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And that's from one unit.
Re-rolling the wound.
Re-rolling the wound
if they're
because
near
the troop
the troop
master's
master,
nearby.
It hurts.
And that's the thing, like, now there's a lot of questions around, like, how do you build a Harlequin unit? Because the one thing that's tricky about Harlequins is they are expensive. And you can sink a lot of points into a single guy, and they are still only 1 wound, they're still only T3,
so this is,
and it's still only a 4-up invulse
It's
save.
interesting with this because this is essentially, Jay and I actually had a long discussion about this, and it helped that I started Deathwatch, because Deathwatch essentially, as we mentioned, very much like Harlequins, they have the same issue. Where it's like, where do you stop giving them toys? Because where do their costs get too high? And like, it gets to a point where like, it's like, they're going to do one thing. Don't try and be jack of all trades. Just make them really fucking good at that one thing.
And that's why the Soaring Spite are there to fly up and kill vehicles, kill monsters, and stay in their transports. Frozen Stars, they take the transports up the field to get there. Next turn, they are dropping out and they are assaulting everything, and they are crushing everything with close combat. So that's what they're there for. And again, by divvying up those toys as you describe them, you really aren't putting too many eggs in one basket.
Well, and again, you have redundancy because you have 3 combat units and you have 3 Judy units.
There you go. And then 3. In the Frozen Stars battalion, in addition to these guys, is a special little guy called the Solitaire. And a Solitaire with the Frozen Stars buff means he has 9 attacks normally when he charges, or 11 when you blitz him. Now, there's some silly shit you can do with the Solitaire we'll get into when we talk about the stratagems for this army. But we'll come back to that, because finally our last detachment is only made up of 1 dude, and it's a Death Jester. For our auxiliary detachment, so we'll give us a -1, which makes this total army a 12 command point army. But this Death Jester, very importantly, is our warlord, and he's of the Dreaming Shadow mask. And I'll tell you why, and now we'll talk about the relics. Because, oh boy, I mean, we live in the Black Library, so we know how nice it is in here, but there are some schmexy enigmas.
Some cool shit, and there's definitely some shit we shouldn't be touching.
We definitely shouldn't be touching those. And they're called Enigmas of the Black Library, for good reason. Now, we talked a little bit last month about, like, the Code of Secret Murder Knives. That's not in this list. When you take this list, you take 3 relics, because they're schmexy and they're all good, and I'll talk about them. For Soaring Spite, there is the Falshoe's Talon. Falshoe had a lot of stuff. He's shown up in a lot of different codexes.
Listen, he was just
he made a lot of shit.
He wanted to diversify, and he was also good at making stuff, or had good people that made stuff.
He had a good advertising team.
Yeah.
Good
and
promotional team.
He was like, listen, Falshoes.
You're going to need to get in on this
Falshoe brand. You got to get in on it on the ground floor.
Falshoe sneakers, they're going to go to somebody. Do they want to go to you?
Through the door.
First foot through the door for those Falshoe sneakers. But Falshoe's Talon is pretty great. It's a Soaring Spite exclusive relic.
Who's this on?
This is going to be on the Troupe Master in Soaring Spite. And basically the reason why it's on there is the Falshoe's Talon is kind of like this super advanced gauntlet that controls this special Star Weaver that he flies around on, where essentially it allows the Star Weaver to go an extra 6 inches when it moves. That means this thing can go 28 inches and still fire fusion guns out of it. It has a 34-inch threat radius with fusion guns. This is incredible.
So
also,
shoot that with last cannons. Got it.
Yes. Also, what's cool about it is if the vehicle dies, you don't roll to kill people inside when they get out of the transport.
They just like they
just
know
pop out.
all the exits, and they're clowns, and they bail out in pirouettes and then land in like 10 points.
10 points! Even the enemies are like, that was pretty good. Pretty graceful. So that's the first relic. The second relic is on the Solitaire, and it's Kegarok's Rose. And this is just a great...
I am aware. Super.
The Kegarok's
Harlequin's
Rose
Kiss.
is a Harlequin's Kiss. We talked about caresses, but Harlequin's Kiss, I think as in regular gameplay, it's not that great. It's only a +1 strength, a -1 AP, and D3 damage. On your regular Harlequin guys, it's not really needed,
It's okay.
If you need to do D3 damage to stuff, just hit the fusion pistols. You got fusion pistols.
I think it's a different flavor. It's a flavor that you don't hold to as much.
But it'd be different if it was a -2 or a -3. But the only being a -1 and only a +1 strength, it's only a strength 4, so it's not.
Yeah, but then you think about putting it into the frozen group, and they all have fucking 5 attacks that are doing D3, and
Yeah, I don't know. There's stuff to be done there. But on the Solitaire, it's incredible because he's usually going off on his own. His name is Solitaire, right? He's doing his own thing. Solitaire, by the way, is a monster. He moves 12 inches. He can do this thing once a game where he can blitz, where instead of just moving 12 inches and advancing D6 and still being able to charge, he can move 12 inches and advance 3d6.
it's a lot.
And just fly across the field and just punch somebody in close combat.
Like
and
greased
when he
lightning.
blitzes that turn, his attack stack goes up from 8 to 10. So like I said, when he's Frozen Stars, he goes from 9 to 11 when he charges.
And what is this? So what does this special Harlequin's Kiss do, though?
Well, it also gives him +1 strength. It gives him -1 to AP and a D3 damage, just like a regular Kiss. Difference is, it has reroll all wounds, which is amazing because
Great.
Solitaire's probably not going to be near a Troupe Master, so he can self-buff, which is really important. I've played the Solitaire quite a few times when he was in the Index, and they finally did come out with saying, like, he actually can get the keyword mask, and he can actually be buffed by a Troupe Master because he wasn't before. But even now, like, he's still never really around in that perfect 6-inch bubble. Like, he needs it.
You want to run him essentially like Slam Gwenius as essentially a backfield or flank harasser that just makes a mockery out of one side.
Oh, yeah, or just wrecks units, because he can. Like a blender, he just spins through them, basically. But Kagarok's Rose lets him automatically reroll wounds, and also, on infantry, his Rose does a flat 3 damage, which is awesome.
Ouch.
Obliterators, I'm sorry. You getting smashed.
I mean, I'm thinking more than that, like going against even a Demon Prince or a G-Man or any...
Well, it won't work against a Demon Prince.
Sorry. They are monsters. My mistake. Any normal buffed character.
Yeah.
Like...
Oh, characters? This guy just snipes characters. This guy can snipe 2 characters easily. Next to him, just punch. So many attacks, flat 3 damage. Like, he's killing dudes. And even just jumping into like Primaris Marines with flat 2 base, jumping into Nurgle, which have a lot of disgustingly resilience, so you're putting more damage, meaning they're failing more of those saves.
Yep.
Like, he's a beast. Now, we'll jump ahead to stratagems in a second, but we're going to come back to how stupid you can get a Harlequin Solitaire up to in one turn.
Last relic.
Last relic is on our Warlord. Yes, our Warlord, the Death Jester.
Now, I think I know what you're going to talk about. You're going to talk about, because if you don't know what the Death Jester is, it's basically like a Harlequin version of a Dark Reaper.
Yes.
And I believe there's a gun that like they specifically lock up and don't take out because they don't know how it works.
It's here. We've never been allowed to see it. It's in the Black Library right now. I've tried to take a look at it.
It's like in one of those like 6-dimensional lock rooms.
It's a triple locked dimensional case. Like, it's crazy. This thing's called Curtain Fall, and I've never seen it in person. I wish we've had a chance to take a look at it.
Great name.
But it's got
Great name.
the craziest poison in it that they don't even know where it came from or who made it. It's pretty rough. But this is a super Shrieker cannon. And Shrieker cannons are what the Death Jesters have, which basically have 2 firing modes. They have regular Shuriken cannon firing mode, where it can do 3 shots, 24-inch range, whatever. Strength 6, it's -3 AP if you roll a 6 to wound. Standard Shuriken fare.
Yep.
Or it has the Shrieker firing mode, where it's 1 shot, and essentially if you wound with it, and they fail the wound and a model dies, you can do D3 mortal wounds to the unit.
It's essentially bioexplosive ammunition. It turns people into bombs.
Yeah, they basically explode. And the Death Jester can target characters too, because he ignores the character keyword, so he's kind of like their own sniper. Well, this is what you do. Curtain Fall lets your gun not only be strength 6, but it becomes strength 7, and huge minuses to AP. For one, the Shuriken cannon becomes -2 AP from being at 0, so right away that's incredible.
Good.
And it's still only all 1 damage. And the Shrieker mode is strength 7 -3, 1 damage. So This almost guarantees that for most like infantry units, you are just exploding those guys
That's
with
good.
the D3 mortal wounds. Now, here's where things can get really silly, getting into the stratagems, is the reason why this Death Jester is in his own little group
And
in
the Warlord?
Dreaming Shadow is, one, Curtain Fall is only for Dreaming Shadow, so you have to specifically give that to him, just like the Foul Shoe Talent is just for Soaring Spite. But what you can do is you can use 2 stratagems on the Death Jester, which is really fun. One is basically, it's called like Shrieking Doom, where what it does is it does a +1 to the, and this is very clear, this has gotten wrong on the internet quite a few times, I want to clarify. The D3 mortal wounds only happens when you use the Shrieker profile, not the Shuriken weapon profile. It only happens when you use the Shrieker profile. People are theorizing that you can hit people, kill 3 models with the Shuriken cannon version and do 3d3 mortal wounds. You can't do that. It only works when you do the Shrieker profile.
But it makes it 3d3 mortal wounds.
No, it doesn't do that. So I'll get there. So you use the Shrieker Doom. So what it does is it +1s to the strength, so it makes it strength 8, and it also makes the damage D3 damage. Now, you combine this with essentially another Dreaming Shadow stratagem. That other one's just a general stratagem, and then you combine that with the exclusive Dreaming Shadow stratagem, an example made, which means any hits are 2 hits, and any 6s rolled for hits are 3 hits.
Yeah.
So you do the Shrieker profile on a character.
You get D3 shots.
And you get, well, not D3 shots. No, it's not D3 shots.
Oh,
D3
sorry.
damage.
It's D3 damage.
So you do the Shrieker cannon profile on a character. You get 2 shots off, or if you roll a 6, you get 3, but more reliably, you're going to get 2 shots off, and you're doing D3 damage, and you combine that with the Warlord trait on this guy, which is why he's the Warlord. Now, the question is, why isn't like the Troupe Master the Warlord? You can give them all these crazy things and stuff like that. I like to play in some ways. I know we've talked about in our seasons of this episode that I get crazy and bloodthirsty, but I also have this thing where I really like to protect my Warlord. I'm big on protecting that point. A lot of people, we play ITC missions where a lot of people take this secondary mission called Old School. Old School has one of their points coming from slaying the Warlord. And even if you just play regular missions, slay the Warlord is one of those things. So I'm very big on protecting my Warlord. So I want to put a Warlord trait on a guy I'm keeping out of combat, which is my Death Jester. That Warlord trait is Luck of the Laughing God. It lets you re-roll 1s for hits, wounds, and damage. So what this means is with your Shrieking Cannon, you can now reliably do anywhere between 4 to 5 damage on average to a character at strength 8, which means you're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, you're wounding on 2s, rerolling 1s, and you're rerolling your damage. So you are very reliably in one turn killing like buff characters like Ancients with banners or Commissars or Psychers or things like that.
Well, you're also, I mean, this against normal squads, I mean, for every model that dies to it, you're doing D3 mortal wounds.
That's the thing. Now, if you do this against, if you just shoot a unit, you're not only killing 2 characters. When you do the Shrieking profile, you're doing 2d3 mortal wounds to the rest of the squad.
Yeah, and I mean, like, this can even be a threat to multi-wound units like Primaris because it's now a D3 damage gun. That means you have only a 33% chance that's rerollable to not kill a guy, which is then doing 2d3 mortal wounds when you kill 2 of them, which probably kills another 2. So yeah, that's not good.
It's brutal. So the Curtain Fall is really cool when you combo it with the Luck of the Laughing God. And then the last thing I want to talk about in terms of stratagems is the Solitaire.
This is silly. This is very, very silly. Be prepared. I was not sure this was real when he mentioned it, but it is.
Oh, but it's real. And here it is. There are 2 stratagems you use with the Solitaire to have some super, super fun times. Sorry, we're going to key this up to one big thing. There's a 3rd stratagem I want to talk about. It's called Hero's Path. And this is where this list kind of comes together into a really fun flavor. Hero's Path is as long as a Shadowseer, a Death Jester, and a Solitaire within 6 inches of each other in a movement phase. At the start of that movement phase, they can leave the board. And at the end of that movement phase, they can reappear on the board anywhere. They don't have to be near each other, 9 inches away from enemies, blah, 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 the normal stuff. The key thing about that is it happens in a movement phase. You can shoot these guys into outer space in your opponent's movement phase.
Yep.
So let me give you an example. Let's say you're not going first. Harlequins usually always want to go first because they're very, very soft and squishy and
They
want
have
to get
4+
in your
symbols,
face.
but they're fragile. Yeah.
But let's say your opponent goes first. It's the top of their movement phase. You go up, 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 Hero's Path, and you take your Solitaire, your Shadowseer, and your Death Jester off the table. First off, that's intimidating for your opponent because they have no idea where they're going to end up. But what's really cool about this is you can reposition them after they have done, because it happens at the end. You do it at the start of their movement, and you place them at the end of their movement, which means after they've positioned everything, you can then reposition your Solitaire, your Shadowseer, and your Death Jester to be in the optimal position for your next turn to move, to charge, to do all those things.
And out of danger of the enemy units.
And out of danger of their enemy units, exactly. It's incredible. And what's really good about that for the Solitaire means you can put the Solitaire in the most optimal position, because remember, he can move up to, on average, 24 inches when you blitz him.
Silly speed.
So you put the Solitaire in the optimal position.
He
with
goes
Hero's
plaid.
Path. He goes plaid speed. He goes Spaceballs plaid. But basically, you set him up. It's the next turn. You're moving him. You're blitzing him, so he automatically gets his maximum 10 attack characteristic. He's going to charge, which means he's at 11 because he's Frozen Stars. He's already at 11 attacks.
Yeah.
He goes to charge a unit. Hopefully it's a unit that has pretty decent Overwatch, because this unit is going to shoot your Solitaire. He's only T3. He's got a 3-up invul, which is really good, but it's still just a 3-up save. With a couple shots and only T3, he's probably going to get wounded. He's got 5 wounds, so 1 wound isn't going to, or 2 wounds isn't going to do much. And we want this to happen, folks, because there's a stratagem called Torments of the Fiery Pit. Use this stratagem in the fight phase before attacking with a Harlequin's character if it has lost any wounds this battle round. So, Overwatch, right? Until the end of the phase, increase the strength characteristic and attacks characteristic of the model by 2. So our 11 attacks Harlequin Solitaire just went up to 13. So he's charging in, doing 13 attacks with his Kegarox Rose, blasting something, and then you use the final stratagem at the end of the turn.
Let me guess, it's like a 3 CP, you can attack twice?
3 CP War Dancers, baby. You can attack again.
Yeah.
So that's right, a single Solitaire in one turn can do 26 attacks from Frozen Stars.
It's a lot.
That's a lot of attacks from one guy. He's basically a walking blender, just spinning through the battlefield endlessly. But guys, that is the Harlequin list. Soaring Spite, Frozen Stars, Dreaming Shadow, all working together to create the Last Laugh.
So that's the name?
That's the name of the list. And I'm really excited about this list. I actually want to try it out after building it out. It sounds fun and goofy, and having one Dreaming Shadow guy. By the way, I didn't mention what Dreaming Shadow does. If a character dies, you can roll on a 4+, he can shoot again. So basically the Death Jester with his stupid gun can fire again even if you kill him, which is fun, right?
I'm sure for you, not for them.
Oh yeah, super fun for me. But guys, basically that's it. I know we went a little bit longer this episode, but a lot of stuff to talk about and a fun list to discuss.
The Last Laugh.
The Last Laugh. But guys, that was episode 48 of Roll to Seize. We'll be posting a new episode of this segment every last Wednesday of the month, with episodes of Dark Heresy the first and second Wednesday. And if you'd like to download more episodes or check out other similar podcasts, head over to partialarc.com. You can email us any questions, like we said, at rolltoseize@gmail.com, and we do mean it. We love to hear about your seasons of the month.
Send us your seasons.
Send them our way.
Everybody has them. Don't deny it.
You've got them. We know it. And, of course, you can always follow us on Twitter and Instagram for tournament and model picks, which we promise we're going to get better at posting.
We're so bad at social media.
And all of that is at Partial Arc. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next month.
Goodbye.